Hello, everyone. I just felt like doing something a little different tonight. I just felt like talking a little bit. And I guess the thing I felt like talking about is the term entitlement. It's a term that's gotten a lot of use in the past few months in video game forums and video game media in general. A lot of people like to use the word to basically label people they disagree with. It's a shame because it's an ugly term, a very loaded term. It's one that became popular in the political arena, basically to label people that made use of social programs like welfare, basically paint someone in a certain way. And for whatever reason, video game fans, video game media, has started using the term like they're a little kid who just discovered a big word and like to use it all the time. But I guess like a little kid, they don't really know what it means and misuse it all the time. The word has gotten a lot of play over the past few months, and most notably surrounding around two games, Mass Effect 3 and Street Fighter vs. Tekken. Not the first games that people have used the word about, but these are the most recent ones. And I guess the acceptance of the term as actually a valid term to use to describe people who are, say, dissatisfied with the output of a video game developer has gotten kind of weird. Most notably, the dissatisfaction has to do with DLC, in the case of both games, and Mass Effect 3 about its ending. But I think DLC is probably the more important one. So recently, some games have gotten really kind of ridiculous with the concept of DLC. It's basically the idea that, you can make a lot of components for a game and then sell those components separately as additional content, so the end result will be someone will be paying a lot more for the game overall than if everything was in the game to begin with. And the argument towards this is that when the DLC is made, the one who's funding it, the publisher, is setting aside the money and funds needed to make this content and has the expectation of getting a return on that. And if there wasn't going to be DLC to begin with, then this content wouldn't have been made at all. And yeah, that's a valid argument. On the other side, people generally argue that a lot of DLC is made during the period of time that the game is developed and not afterwards. And if that's the case, if the DLC is done before the game is done, and in some cases if the DLC is included on the disc, then shouldn't that just be part of the game? I kind of think that there's a lot of wasted breath, wasted typing, arguing this, because it's not really the main issue. I tend to side with the people who feel that DLC has gotten kind of crazy, but not really for the reasons that they tend to say. The idea that you have the license to access all content on a disc because you bought the disc is something that is, for better or for worse, kind of getting phased out. And as time goes on, it probably will no longer be the case that you can consider a physical purchase of software to be entirely yours. I know that the idea of that you're not purchasing something to own, but rather you're purchasing a license to use software is something that software companies have been pushing for many years, and they're probably going to get their way on that. But I don't think the fact that it's on the disc is necessarily the reason why it shouldn't be expected to be DLC. I think that's sort of a symptom of the problem, but not the problem itself. Forgive me if I'm kind of slurring my words together a little bit. I think the main problem, and for some reason, when I see this argument, this is not something I ever see anyone say, even though it really gets to the core of it. The main concern people have with DLC is not so much that it's on the disc, even though they may say that's the problem. It really isn't. The problem is that when the idea of additional content was first introduced, the idea was that you bought a game for, however much money. And for that money, you had an entire game. And then afterwards, additional content might come out that you could buy and add on to the game. But the game, in its original form, would be considered complete. It would not be the case that you felt that you needed to have this DLC in order to have a complete game. And because of that, I would separate the ideas of additional content and, I guess I would say, original content. Original content meaning content that's supposed to be in the game itself, to have a one complete game. The problem that a lot of people have with the DLC in a game like Mass Effect 3, that being the biggest one, is that there is this real sense that that's not where it's going, that that's not what the DLC is. That instead of buying one complete game and then buying additional content, there's this sense that rather there is content that was made in the game that I would call original content, and that content has been cut out or blocked off in order to then sell as DLC. And the feeling is that you need to buy this DLC in order for the game to be complete. That if you don't have it, that the game is missing something. Specifically, this would be the From Ashes DLC. As has been noted by many people, when you do that DLC and you get the Prothean crew member, that can change certain scenes and dialogue throughout the game that you play. Now, this is different from, say, a DLC pack where, say, you download some sort of additional mission, and then you can just go into it with, the game you've been playing, the party you've been playing, and do that mission. And, great. It was an additional mission. You did it because it was fun. You had fun with the complete game, so you wanted a little bit more, and you did that little bit more. But with Mass Effect 3, it's more like, to get the complete experience of that DLC, the From Ashes DLC, then you need to play through the whole game, or just about, with this additional crew member. And that if you've already played the game without it, then you've missed something. And I would say that seems to imply to people that this DLC is not additional, but rather it's just part of the game. It's something that should be considered original content. And it seems strange that this is something that was cut out in order to sell as DLC. The anger people have over discovering that the Prothean crew member is on the disc is because this seems to back up that idea. Because you can't say for sure if this really is additional content or not. There's no way for you to know if this actually was made as additional content or if it was made as original content and then cut out. We're not the developers of the game. We really have no way to confirm or deny that. So all you can do is guess. And when you get things like that character being on the disc, or in something like Street Fighter vs. Tekken, where all of the characters and all of their cutscenes are all on the disc, people then tend to feel, well, this isn't additional content. This is just you're cutting pieces of the game out and then selling it to us at additional cost. And it's not a surprise that people would get upset about that. And I'm not sure why there are so many people who feel that it is outrageous to get angry about that. To feel that you're being gouged. And I always kind of find it kind of weird when people just say that this generation, the young generation, is entitled. Sure, there are people who are entitled, but I think that if you're calling someone complaining over feeling price gouged entitled, then you've never actually met someone to whom the word actually applies. Entitled is not complaining about the cost of Mass Effect 3. Entitled is waiting outside the GameStop, waiting to mug you when you come outside with your copy of the game. Maybe it's just because of the job I held for the past few years where I did encounter a number of people for whom the word entitled really did apply. And it just kind of bothers me to see the word used in such a way to describe people who feel that these are anti-consumer business practices, that this is just, a game company trying to take a $60 game and sell it for a good deal more than that. Basically what that amounts to. Of course, you might say that it's not so important because it's just games, so don't buy it if you don't like it. And yeah, there is that, sure. But is it wrong to express a negative opinion about this practice? What is entitled about that? Or rather, I should say, is someone not entitled to their opinion? Again, it's hard to say where that line is drawn at what is acceptable DLC and what is not. But it's there's sort of a sense, like I said, when you see something that you feel, okay, that's additional content. I didn't need that to get a whole, complete game. And content where you feel that, well, I did need that. And by not having that, I missed out on a big part of what made this game something I wanted to play. To actually get the complete experience, it was necessary to pay that additional $10. And many people feel that kind of thing should not be DLC. And I agree with that. It shouldn't. If it's something that's essential to the game experience, something that's needed to complete that game experience, it really should not be additional content. That's just part of the game. And I understand that charging additional money for that is more, it makes it more acceptable than just charging, a $70, $80 for a game. I get that part. And again, like I said, it kind of bothers me that people seem to be taking this as meaning, oh, this young generation is just so entitled they feel everything is owed to them. Feeling that you're being price gouged is not a trait of the young generation. It's not exclusive to them. Generations throughout history have complained about business practices that they thought were nonsense. Here, try this experiment. Why don't you take your copy of Mass Effect 3? Go to, someone a lot older than you. Say, how about your parents? Hey, how about do your parents not know anything about video games? Then all the better. Why don't you take that game up to them and say, hey, I spent $60 on this, and there's content on this disc that I can't access, but I have the opportunity to pay additional money to access that content. And just see what they think about that business practice. And then after they tell you that it's bullshit, go ahead and tell them that their generation is just entitled. It's not what that means. Entitlement really has to do with not caring about anyone else or having sort of delusions about what should be yours, and a lack of care of other people's rights or other people's sense of ownership. And that's really not what this is. This is just, hey, you're basically price gouging. What are you doing? It's not to say that I agree with everything that people on that side of things say. For example, there's that movement to try to get BioWare to make a new ending for Mass Effect 3. I don't agree with that for a couple reasons. One, if a work is done, it's done. For good or for bad. Leave it. That's the work. That's just my own opinion. But the other reason, probably more important reason, is do you really want to go down that road where a company would now be actually selling the ending of a game as DLC? Because that's what that would be leading to. If BioWare did make a new ending, they'd sell it as DLC. And then you actually are getting to that point, setting a precedent where a company can do that. They can sell an ending as DLC. And that's basically what you're asking them to do. Now, I know that you'd probably say, well, no, we'd want them to release it for free. But they never do that. Because that would be against their interest. That would set a precedent that they are capable of releasing DLC for free. And that's something they don't want to set. Understandably. Why would they? You see, the thing about video games is you can't really put a value on content. There's no hard number you can apply to it. How much is video game content worth? Why is a video game worth $60? Why is this DLC worth $10? Is there some sort of way of proving how much something is worth? Oh, no. If a game provides a really good 5-hour experience and it costs $60, and then you have another $60 game that's 10 hours long but not as good, is one of them worth $60 and the other one is not? How do you determine that? Is the longer one worth $60 because it's longer? Is the shorter one worth $60 because it provides a better experience in that shorter amount of time? How do you define what's worth a high price when it comes to video game content? Well, there's really no way of pricing that. And what that means is that video game content is worth whatever the publisher says it's worth. That's why they can charge $10 for DLC. that also means that if they said that this video game content was worth nothing and they can release it for free, they can do that. But of course, they would not want to set that precedent where they could say, this can be free. That's not something they want to do. They want it to be accepted that any DLC will always cost money. So nothing will be released for free, and you can guarantee that. So it's misguided to demand that BioWare make a new ending, because that's going to lead to a bad road either way, set a bad precedent either way. Not that I think that they're out of line asking for that. I don't understand why people seem so outraged when this gets brought up. Like, they say that the audience really has no right to demand that of the creators. Creators aren't gods. They're just people. They can make mistakes, and many people feel that they made big mistakes with Mass Effect 3's ending. As far as what right the audience has for that, well, they made the game a success. Sure, Mass Effect games have always been well made, but if no one bought them, the talents of the people who made those games would have been for nothing. It is the audience that makes the game a success, and that gives them the right to state that opinion, that the ending was trash and that BioWare should make a new one. Again, I agree that they have the ability to say that of BioWare, but I don't agree that they should. I don't think they want to. They really don't want to do that. They may think they do, that they don't. Just accept that the ending of Mass Effect 3 was terrible, and hope that BioWare does not actually release a new ending as paid DLC. Because that's opening up a whole can of worms that I hope does not get opened up. I think DLC is fine when it's for actual additional content. But I think there's a real problem when you have the idea of that you're taking this complete game and you're taking parts out of it in order to sell that separately. Again, no evidence that that's what's done. But it does kind of seem that way with games like Mass Effect 3, Street Fighter vs. Tekken, and a few months ago there was also Arkham City with the Catwoman DLC, in which Catwoman, of course, was advertised heavily as the game was coming out, and then shortly before it came out, I believe, I can't remember how long it was exactly before it came out, they announced that she's actually DLC. And she plays a significant part of the game. So it seemed kind of odd that something like that would be DLC. But that'd be getting off on a tangent. Basically, the main idea that I just felt like, I guess, rambling on about is that using the word entitlement and calling people entitled over this thing is just a dumbass thing to do. You don't even know what you're saying. Stop saying it. And for God's sake, stop being in, I don't know, what would you even call it? Anti-consumer? Like, why would you be so angry that consumers who made this series a success are upset with the result? Why is that something even getting worked up about? Why would, if you are consumers yourself, why would you not agree? I notice that some people tend to put the creators of content up on a pedestal. I guess I got over that. And people my age were basically in the perfect place to get over that back when the Star Wars prequels came out. And I guess that's when that happened to me. Because, you know, when I was very young, growing up, I was really in the perfect age to be a Star Wars kid. And, Lucas was, the god tier storyteller. He was the master. He could not be beaten. It's basically what we thought of him. And it's kind of weird to say that now, but we did. And then the prequels came out. Episode 1 came out. And we thought, well, it's been a while since he's made a movie, right? Give him a chance. I'm sure some of this stuff is, that seems dumb is going to turn out to be important and is going to be, worthwhile that we got to see it. I'm sure there's a good reason that, he cast this kid who couldn't act as Anakin, He knows what he's doing. And then episode 2 came out, episode 3 came out, and people in my generation had to sort of had this cognitive dissonance going on about how it became increasingly obvious that Lucas didn't know what he was doing and that he couldn't make a good movie, and the weird acceptance of that. And then looking into the history of the Star Wars movies and seeing just how much of those movies were, how much of what made those movies good were the responsibility of other people, and how when you take a look at George Lucas's original script for Star Wars, it's just terrible, and it's terrible in the same ways the prequels are terrible. And again, like I said, people in my age basically had this realization of, oh my God, he was a hack the whole time. Why did I start talking about that? Well, I guess I was just thinking that maybe one reason people tend to side with BioWare on this subject is because maybe they have that kind of idol worship of creators, storytellers. Maybe they haven't gone through their own moment like that. I don't know if that really had anything to do with this argument at all. I guess it was something I just felt like saying. Talking about Star Wars and George Lucas would be something that I could probably go on hours about, and I really should not. Used to be a big fan of that, not anymore. Anyway, I guess I've been talking for almost a half an hour. I don't know, like I said, I just kind of felt like talking, and there's no one here, so I just wanted to go on about something that was kind of bothering me, seeing it used so much recently, talking about video games and the sense of entitlement in the gamer community. I hate the word gamer. It sounds so dumb. Why would anyone identify themselves as a gamer? I'm a gamer. I play video games. Why would you identify yourself as your life as being, as being something that plays video games? I don't know. I don't like the term. But like I said, I was just wanted to talk about something that a term that had been used a lot recently. It bothers me every time I see it because it's just used so inappropriately. You ever get the feeling that video game websites tend to hate their audiences? I mean, I guess I can see that sometimes because the internet does complain a lot, and if that's the only side you really pay attention to, it can seem insufferable. That's not the only side there is. But it seems so weird sometimes how much of a disdain that video game media tends to have for their audiences. And maybe that's where this kind of thing comes from, where they see the internet complaining about something and then come to the immediate assumption that they have no point, that they're wrong and obviously BioWare is right. I think as time goes on, general opinion will probably change about that. But for right now, it seems so weird that anyone who complains about this is considered entitled. No, they're not. And you don't know what entitled means. Stop using the word. I suppose if I put this little ramble in a video, watching a black screen for a half an hour is going to get kind of boring. I probably should put something up for you to watch while I'm talking. Probably come up with some video game footage from my archives here. I have some old weird stuff here. I'll probably put some video footage of something up here that you can watch while I'm talking. And I don't know if this was worth listening to. I just like doing it. I just felt like doing it. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, I don't know. If it's good, great. Let me know. If it's bad, let me know. If you disagree with me, tell me. But make sure that you're able to articulate your argument as to why it's wrong. Because, I like an argument if the person I'm arguing with is able to actually argue. If you feel that I'm, full of shit, don't hesitate to tell me about that. I don't think I am, because I think my opinion is right. As well I should. I think that my opinion is better than yours. Conversely, you should think your opinion is better than mine. If you do, let me know, and let me know why. Don't feel shy about that. And if you don't feel that your opinion is better than mine, then why? You should work on that. Anyway, I don't know if I'll do something like this again. I guess I just did it tonight because I feel real tired and there's nothing else to do right now. And I'm kind of in a different state of mind than I usually am, I guess. But if someone enjoyed listening to this, then great. I guess I'll see you some other time. Oh, and I should probably mention that the Shadows of the Damned LP, the next video was delayed a little bit because it's taken me a while to capture the footage and put a summary together of the next game I'm doing a summary of, which is Silent Hill 2. Those usually end up taking longer than I think they're going to, so that's why there was nothing up this week. And, man, I really should get to work on that Mode LP, but we'll see when I'm able to get started on that. Didn't do any demo friends for Xbox Live Arcade this week because neither of those games that came out this week looked interesting. Next week, however, is a side-scrolling shooter that was made in part by Grasshopper. It's called Sign Mora. I had no idea something like that was coming out, so I think we'll definitely be looking at that. Kind of obligated to play it, I think, since it's Grasshopper. But I'll see you for that one anyway. And I don't know if I'll do one of these little talking videos again, whatever. Maybe if I feel maybe if something's bothering me again, I will. We'll see. Have a good night.